found an excellent overall document that helps mom and dad and the adult children answer a lot of questions. It's called The 5 Wishes. It's from an organization called agingwithdignity.org, and it covers really all the main issues that someone needs to consider if they have a serious illness. There's 5 basic questions, and they go through the 5 basic questions in detail. And it's a great way for parents to share for the first time what their concerns are if they're seriously ill.
Hello, and welcome to Not Born Yesterday, a podcast dedicated to older adults and the challenges and joys of aging. I'm Miriam Goodman.
Not Born Yesterday is brought to you by Next Village SF, a local nonprofit providing older adults in the Northeast neighborhood of San Francisco with support to help age in place. I'm Lynn Winter-Gross.
Today on Not Born Yesterday, we're going to discuss talking. Not the easy dinner table conversations or the sharing of memories, but the difficult discussions of finances. Talking about money is usually a sensitive issue for adults. People don't easily talk to friends about how much they earn, how much they save, or what they spend. Financial conversations between parents and adult children are no easier. Parents often don't want to discuss their finances with their children and choose to keep them private, often waiting until it's too late. In many cases, however, as the parents age, their adult children feel they need this kind of talk. But most children don't know where to start. Such conversations don't require that anyone reveal the amount of money they have, but they should at least know which bank they use, where important papers are kept, and what, if any, funeral arrangements have been made or prepaid. Should a parent become unable to make financial decisions, how will their children know who or where to begin?
Our guest today recommends that all adult children start the conversation with their parents before it's too late. Robert Mauterstock, a certified financial planner, has written a book called Can We Talk? A Financial Guide to Baby Boomers Assisting Their Elderly Parents. His book is a practical guide for parents and their adult children to make plans and preserve legacies and avoid disastrous financial decisions. Robert, welcome to Not Born Yesterday.
Thank you. You can call me Bob, by the way.
Okay, Bob, you remind us that older baby boomers probably had parents who lived through the Depression. I know I did. And I know that experience affected the way they felt about money. Those attitudes may have been passed down to the next generation who've lived through so many different ups and downs in the economy. So if these parents have not talked to their children about their own financial situation, the children might not be aware of potential problems. So how do we begin in a way that doesn't make the older generation feel threatened or uncomfortable?
Well, that's a very good question, because my parents grew up in the Depression, and I don't think they ever had a credit card, nor did they have a mortgage. So that was all new to them. And they had a son, me, who loved to use a credit card. So it was a much different experience. But you have to be very careful when you're beginning to talk to parents about their financial needs. And I think it becomes increasingly important as they get older, and you need to know if they're going to have the financial wherewithal to handle their situation if one of them develops a chronic illness. So it has to begin somewhere, but it doesn't necessarily have to begin with detailed questions. I often will suggest to my clients that they just find out from their parents if they're able to handle their own finances and if they might need help. And that's a good place to start.
Can you give us an example of a meeting that went really well and another one that didn't go well at all?
Well, the meeting that goes well is when number one, I suggest that you have an outside facilitator that it not be a family member, because every family member has their own needs and interests, so that may come into play. So I think it's beneficial to have an outside facilitator. And when it works well is when each person has the respect for the other person to let them speak and to speak their mind. When it doesn't work well is when individuals try to hog the whole conversation, don't let other family members talk, and really distract their parents from what the major concerns are. I mean, those are the types of things that can ruin a family meeting.
So who should not be included in the family meeting?
I generally think it should be mom and dad and their children. I don't suggest that siblings and or grandchildren should be involved in that meeting, unless one of the children's spouse is a critical person in making their financial decisions. I think it's best for just mom and dad and their adult children to be the people who have this conversation.
So, what are some of the major financial issues that families should discuss? If parents are no longer to make financial decisions in the future, how do we deal with their issues of competency, for example?
Well, I mean, the family needs to know that both mom and dad need to have someone who's going to have a power of attorney, who's going to be able to act in their behalf if they can't make financial decisions. And that needs to be discussed. Who's the right to adult child to do that? And they need to have some conversation about who's going to make the medical decisions, the power of attorney for medical decisions. Who's going to make that decision? And I recommend strongly that not be a joint decision, because it can get into a lot of difficult conversations between children. Is, should we do this for mom? Should we do that for mom? And to disagree about what should happen. So I think it's valuable to have one person have that the healthcare proxy, and have another child to be a successor. Likewise with the power of attorney, that one child have the durable power of attorney for their parents, and have successors if they can't handle the load.
That sounds difficult, to choosing one child over the other to make those decisions.
Well, parents know who the right person is. They know the person that has been able to work with them, that they can talk to, they could make decisions with, and have an honest discussion. I think most of the time they know who that child is, and they can really pick that. I call that child is really an important member of the family. It's the child that is the one that the parents look to for advice, that has been successful in their own lives and has the respect of their siblings. I think that's the right child to have that discussion with.
So what you're saying is, if you're an only child, you have it all on you.
It's you. You don't have a choice. It's all you. And I can, and in most families, siblings can really identify which one of them is the right person. They will. Sometimes there's issues where they disagree as to who should have that authority and that power, but mom and dad have to make the ultimate decision. I found an excellent overall document that helps mom and dad and the adult children answer a lot of questions. It's called The 5 Wishes, and it's from an organization called agingwithdignity.org, and it covers really all the main issues that someone needs to consider if they have a serious illness. There's 5 basic questions, and they go through the 5 basic questions in detail. And it's a great way for parents to share for the first time what their concerns are if they're seriously ill. And what I've asked advisors to do is to get the copy of that document themselves and fill it out for themselves and answer the questions in the way that they'd like to be handled, and then share it with their clients to show them, here's what I'd like to do. And I suggest that you take a look at this form and fill it out and share it with your children.
So we've talked a lot about different things we have to talk about at the meeting, but do we need an agenda? And what should the agenda be? Yeah,
the agenda really should be created by the facilitator. And I've put together a short booklet on how to prepare and hold a family meeting. And essentially the facilitator should, before having the family meeting, discuss with mom and dad each individually, and the adult children each individually, as to what things they want to make sure happens and what they want to make sure does not happen. And so then from that point, facilitator will put together a sample document as to what's agenda, as to what's going to happen, share it with the family, and get their feedback in terms of what's going to be covered in the meeting, and to get that settled before they have the meeting so that they know, here's what we need to cover during this meeting. Because oftentimes, if the facilitator is not on top of things can get drawn out into specific areas that don't leave time for other more important issues. So that needs to go out to the family members before the family meeting so they can all agree upon what's going to be discussed.
And this family meeting doesn't necessarily happen at the Thanksgiving dinner?
No, that's not a good time. It's not a good time. It's not good to mix important decisions with a social meeting. Things get really missed, and it's not directed at the right types of things. I think it should be a meeting specifically set up to cover the issues and concerns that mom and dad have.
When is the right time to ask for your parents' passwords?
Well, I think the only person that should know that is the person who has the durable power of attorney. Everyone should not have that information. But if you have the durable power of attorney, you need to know that information if something were to happen to your parents. As I've seen situations where a spouse or another loved one has died, and another family member cannot access their financial information. And there's no way they can get at it without having that access, because the various internet programs will not allow you in if you don't have that username and ID. So you need to get it to the power of attorney, and you need to keep it up to date, because as you know, as I know, in many different situations, we need passwords, and we need to keep a record of what those are. Because if we don't have a record, we can really get frustrated by not being able to get into a specific situation. So there are online programs that you can use to keep track of your username and password. I use one called keeper.com, and there are others. And you keep in that document what the various locations are that you use with your username and password, and you keep track of it. And you can have someone else have the ability to access that program. And you should have at least one other person have the access to that program.
There's also the problem with bank accounts and automatic payments going out month after month that somebody can't stop
Absolutely.
unless they can get into the bank account.
Absolutely. And again, that's where the durable power of attorney comes into play. Banks should allow a person with that durable power to get access to a person's bank account to make changes there.
So we've talked about a lot of the financial aspects of this conversation. Is this same conversation the right place to talk about the individual parents' wishes for care if they no longer can care for themselves?
Well, it depends upon how much time you have for the meeting. Generally, these meetings can go on for more than an hour or two. So sometimes it's best to break them up into a couple different sessions, because you don't want people to get so tired that they can't make decisions. But yes, there's a lot of other things that are important for the family to discuss. And as you mentioned, care. I think there's three basic questions that mom and dad need to know regarding their care. Number one, if one of them becomes chronically ill, can they stay in their home? Do they have access to bathrooms easily? There's a significant number of stairs that they need to go up and down stairs, and need to get a better understanding if their home is a place where one person who has a chronic illness can remain. So you need to plan out in advance if you can, in fact, stay in your home. And the second question is, who is going to take care of me if I have a chronic illness? I remember meeting with one older couple and their adult children and spouses. And dad said, well, I know who's going to take care of me. And he pointed to his daughter-in-law, and she was shocked. She said, wait a minute, I have a full-time job and I have two small children. How could I ever take care of you? So that decision needs to be made in addition to where they're going to live. And the third question is, how are we going to pay for the care? There's a number of different things that families need to consider, do they have long-term care insurance? Do they have other sources of like the Veterans Administration or other benefit programs that'll pay for their care? But they have to understand that Medicare does not cover custodial care. Medicare only covers illnesses and injuries and recovery from them, but not any care that doesn't require a person with specific medical training.
It seems there's a couple special situations that can be considered. One is second marriages, and two is children that have special needs and need more resources, will need more resources in the future.
Oh, that's absolutely true. Special needs often require bringing in a special needs attorney who understands what the children's special needs are and how to protect assets for them if mom and dad pass. I had a doctor and his wife who had an adult son who had had a motorcycle accident and was primarily incapacitated. We had to talk with a special needs attorney as to how to make sure he would be taken care of when mom and dad passed away, because that's a critical factor that needs to be thought of in advance. And families need to set up special circumstances to cover those needs so that the child can qualify for special payments from the government, as well as assets held in their behalf.
And we were talking about we're talking about also second marriages. So if you have two sets of children, or even if the first children or the first marriage's children are the only children and have maybe a fraught relationship with the second marriage, how do we deal with that in the meetings?
That's often difficult. I had one family meeting with the husband who had been a client of mine for many years. He was a retired doctor, and his third wife and her attorney and their accountant and his children from his first marriage and his second marriage, all in one family meeting. The first thing that came up was the adult children were angry with his third wife because they felt that she had taken advantage of him and she had yelled at him. And then when they met with their dad, who they haven't seen in a while, they discovered that he was already suffering dementia, and she had a very frustrating experience trying to communicate with him. So I think it's important to get all the family members together that are involved in the decision-making for mom and dad, and make sure that they all understand the circumstances and none are left out.
So many of our listeners are older adults. Do you recommend that they call on one of their children, the alpha male or the alpha female, to get this thing organized? Or that
Absolutely. They need to identify who that alpha child is and ask the alpha child to stay in touch with their siblings to make them understand and realize the importance of having a meeting, because many of the elder parents have never really discussed these primary issues with their children. They just have not either been comfortable or had the time to do it, but it's on their minds. So that they need to share that with their alpha child, who they then will ask to put the meeting together. That's a critical step.
Well, you've given us a lot of important information and a lot for our listeners to think about. Is there anything you think we've missed that people need to know before they call this meeting together?
I'm not sure of any specifics that I left out, but we've talked about the various documents they need. They don't need to get into detailed finances initially. I remember having one family meeting, and before the meeting, I communicated with each one of the family members, and the alpha child told me, he said, "Listen, don't talk to my dad about finances. He doesn't want to have anything to do with financial matters in this meeting." So when I had my pre-meeting conversation with Dad, I didn't talk about finances at all. But then when we got the family meeting together, there was mom and dad and 3 adult children. The meeting was going well, and then we broke for dinner, and then we got back together, and each of us noticed there was a sheet of paper on our chair, and it was Dad's listing of his assets and liabilities. And he said to us, I've just realized that if I'm going to be in this, I better be in it completely. So I want to share with you exactly what my situation was. And the meeting went very well from that point on.
Thank you again for your time. That was Robert Mauterstock, author of Can We Talk?
Thank you very much. A pleasure to talk to you folks.
Today on News You Can Use, we want to share some information about older people in Zimbabwe. According to a recent article in the Boston Globe, there's now a successful program that deals with the lack of mental health professionals in this African country. It's already being copied in other countries. In the United States, it's estimated that 150 million people live in areas that don't have enough psychiatrists, psychologists, social workers, or other mental health workers. Add to that the fact that more than 60% of the current trained professionals are 55 years or older and are approaching retirement.
About 20 years ago, a psychiatrist in Zimbabwe lost a patient to suicide. He then decided to find a way to help people who need mental health care but have geographic or financial barriers to access. While he was recruiting and training practitioners, he found there was already a group of experienced, empathetic, and respected caregivers who were willing to help, a group of grandmothers. The psychiatrist, Dixon Shibanda, worked with the Ministry of Health and Child Care and the University of Zimbabwe to develop a pilot program to train older women in a mode of evidence-based talk therapy known as problem-solving therapy. The aim was to reinforce the women's capacity to listen, to make people feel heard and seen, to give patients a feeling of belonging, and to help them gain the confidence to find their own solutions. Shibanda said that the grandmothers are the custodians of local culture and wisdom, and trained a group of 14 women in the city of Harare. He said that rather than seeing patients in noisy public clinics or hospitals, the grandmothers could provide their services in a simple, unpretentious location, a park bench.
From the start of the program, the women shaped it, even complaining that to call it the mental health bench wasn't good. They decided to call it the friendship bench as a way of eliminating shame and stigma. They also advised the avoidance of overly clinical language. For example, rather than talking about depression or anxiety, the grandmothers often used a gentler Shona word, which translates as thinking too much. One program participant went to the friendship bench when her marriage was in crisis, and she was struggling to feed her children and pay their school fees. In the beginning, she said, "I thought I was no longer human because of the troubles that I had." With few resources and little formal education, she didn't feel equipped to reach out to any social service providers.
So when this patient first met her so-called grandmother, their sessions on the bench focused only on ensuring that she felt love and respect. Over time, their conversation shifted to practical problem solving, including better communication with her husband and how she could start earning some income for herself. The patient said that the grandmother really helped her. "I started out crying, but in the end, I was happy," she said. "I got the feeling that I was accepted in the community." This empowering sense of acceptance and belonging underlies many of the friendship bench interactions, and it's reciprocal. Grandmothers reported gaining strength and sustenance from feeling part of the community that extends beyond the bench. "I learned that I'm important to other people," one of the grandmothers said. "People keep coming to me. It makes me see that I'm doing a good job in the community."
Research has studied the effect of the friendship bench on the grandmothers, and they found that they all benefited from feeling part of a community that extends beyond the bench. They also found a lower incidence of anxiety and depression among the grandmothers.
As for the patients themselves, there have been almost 100 peer-reviewed studies of the effectiveness of the friendship bench. The Journal of the American Medical Association found significant improvement in participants with depression who received therapy from a trained grandmother, and over 60,000 people in Zimbabwe have been reached. Similar projects have been launched in Kenya and Vietnam, and there are pilot efforts around New York City. The friendship bench is inexpensive, easy to replicate, and effective. Do you think it could work here?
And that's our podcast for today. Our thanks go to our guest, Robert Mauterstock, author of Can We Talk? You can learn more about Next Village SF at their website, nextvillagesf.org. Our theme music is from Hook Sounds, and Jason Dahlstedt is our engineer. And thanks for listening. We'd love to hear what you would like us to discover and discuss. Please contact us at notbornyesterdaypodcast.org. Be well, stay strong, and remember, you weren't born yesterday. I'm Lynn Winter Gross.
And I'm Miriam Goodman.